I wasn't really much of a person who would pray. I honestly, praying was kind of one of my weakest aspects, I guess, about when it comes to my faith. There was one night where I just prayed to God, and I actually just simply asked him, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andy. I'm making these videos just to document my journey into getting closer with Jesus, and so let's get into it. Okay, so this one's gonna be about how I actually transitioned out of the 9-to-5. The situation is, I was 35, single, living in a very spacious 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. I think it had like 800 square feet or something like that. Roughly once a month, I'd had some people over. We would just play video games. My living room had like a bunch of CRT TVs that we would play Super Smash Brothers Melee on. I was working in biotech at the time. I was making about 81,000 a year. That was an hourly wage, and I was working nights. I was essentially a vampire. My shifts were 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And I would do these shifts where it was like 3 days on, 4 days off, and then 4 days on, 3 days off. And I was making pretty decent money for how much money I was actually spending a month. I could just comfortably save money, not really even look at my bank account. And I basically just had everything I really wanted. You know, I had health benefits, which I didn't really use too much. But it was a good safety net to have, you know, and after a while, the reliable job was starting to kind of annoy me. I could basically just do whatever I wanted. I had enough money and time to do so. If I really wanted to travel somewhere, I could do so. If I really wanted to start any kind of project or anything, I could do that. Any kind of new hobby, either live closer into the city and pay a little bit more, or I live a little bit further away and pay less. And I decided to do the later. And so even though I chose the longer commute on just sort of a cost basis, I didn't really like commuting, right? Nobody really likes commuting. And I thought it was just, you know, it's just time wasted out of your life. And at the time, you know, it made sense to me. So basically, like, I was at a crossroads in my life where I knew that I could do anything. I had the power to do anything. It was a very liberating feeling. I had everything that I wanted: a car, a good computer, a bed. I'm very simple. And in terms of like material things, it felt like I didn't really want anything more. I would continue living this life, but I still felt like there was something missing. I still felt like there was some kind of void in my life that I couldn't really quite satisfy. And I knew that, but I did know that, you know, because I actually do have a bit of experience doing YouTube in the past for a gaming channel, but I knew that video editing and making videos and stuff was actually very fulfilling. And so it was like a legitimate thing that brought me fulfillment. My faith at the time was increasing. I started reading the Bible more and more from time to time. And listening, one thing that really helped me was listening to other people's near-death experiences, and not the AI ones. And just listening to other content creators, I was very open to the idea that heaven and hell are real constructs. Because of that, there was sort of this dread that kind of lingered in me, confirming that, yeah, my soul is definitely at stake. You know, that I am at risk of going to hell forever. You know, my faith was increasing. I was fasting a little bit from time to time, maybe like once a month. I was reading my Bible. There was one night where I basically just prayed to God. I wasn't really much of a person who would pray. I honestly, praying was kind of one of my weakest aspects, I guess, about when it comes to my faith. There was one night where I just prayed to God, and I actually just simply asked him. I asked God, I prayed to God, and I was like, hey man, just use me. Like, just use me as a tool. Because I would rather God use me in the way that he wants to than me just kind of living this life where I could, I'm just sort of this like, there was just something in me that just didn't want to just live this kind of like, it's almost selfish. And I prayed to him because I wanted direction. I was in a point in my life where I could go in any direction I wanted to, And so after that prayer, God, I could tell God really started working, and I could feel it too. And he would start talking to me, and it would be clear as day. It would be so crystal clear when God would speak to me, and I knew instantly that it was him. And he kept mentioning this YouTube channel. Over time, I would ignore it. Actually, there have been times where I would ignore it, or I would say in my mind that yes, like I'll get to it, but then I end up just getting distracted, and I never really put like meaningful time into it. On my days off, I would read the Bible, and I find myself actually crying. These are certain scriptures where I'd get kind of introspective, but then sometimes I would just start crying like out of nowhere. I don't even know, man. Something about the Bible and just like the act of reading the words on the page is something very special. I don't know how to describe it, but there was a time when I started crying, and I was crying a lot too. Like messy crying. Like I was messy crying. It was a lot, and it felt like Jesus was really in the room with me, and it felt like I was basically crying on his lap. I had the idea to make videos spreading the gospel, and ever since I said that out loud, Jesus really started working. And he said, yes, you should do that. And it was very vivid too. It was a very vivid kind of suggestion that he's like, I would want you to do this, and I'd go through my work week, come back on the weekend, and then start reading again, and I start crying again. I just start crying again, and it felt like, and I'm gonna be completely honest, man, like it felt like years or even decades of kind of pent up stress or something was being released. Over time, Jesus would tell me, hey, I think you should think about maybe quitting your job. Every 2-3 weeks, it was something like every 2-3 weeks, I would hear his voice. It was clear as day, super clear. And it would be like in the most random times at work too. It would be in times when I was like alone in a room, or like when I'm doing something solo, I would just hear his voice so clearly, and it was just out of nowhere. And he'd say like, hey man, you should think about quitting. It's a hard decision to make, right? It's like basically made a 7-month plan to leave my workplace. And in the 7 months, I basically cleared off all my debts, and just started stockpiling a bunch of money just so that I could quit more comfortably and not just quit kind of on the whim, My plan was that I would have enough money for medical emergency, I would have enough for a car emergency, and I would have enough for things like food and just sustaining for basically the next year or however long, right? And so I made a plan of just moving back in with my parents, which I am right now. This is where I'm in the office room here. So I'm basically back in my parents' house. The plan is just to build 1 or 2 maybe YouTube channels and just go all in on it. One prayer had basically set off a whole chain reaction of things, and I have nobody to thank but Jesus for that. And because it feels so much better, because I'm doing something that's more aligned to my skills. And it's doing something that's truly like of God's work, like I'm doing something pleasing him. And it was a very uncomfortable decision to make, man. I'm not gonna lie. I had many car rides where I'm just driving to work or back, and I would just be completely lost in thought because of trying to contemplate this kind of decision of like, oh wow, I'm really gonna do this. Don't get me wrong too, it's like I was already thinking about doing YouTube for a long time anyway. And when God came along and said, hey, that you should probably quit, I knew that there was something special there, because I knew that there was some kind of alignment there. It's not like I'm throwing it all away, right? Because even if many years down the line, if the whole YouTube thing doesn't really even work out, then I can still always choose to go back. And I would prefer not to. I'm back in the same house that I did high school in, so it's kind of a whole nostalgia trip. It's joined my local church maybe like 2 months ago. And I joined a men's Bible study, and I'm doing also there's these other small groups that I'm part of where we just kind of fellowship and talk about the sermons and stuff that were discussed on Sunday. But basically these days I'm just living a much more fulfilled life, right? It's like I can go to sleep every day now with peace, knowing that even if I were to die the next day, that my videos are still on the internet. Every video I release, that the message is still getting across, and that once the video is uploaded, then I'm good. Then it's good, right? Then it's like, okay, it's out in the world, and there's kind of this, it's a little bit of like weight or responsibility lifted off my shoulders a little bit, if that makes any sense. It feels like I've done the work that I needed to do, and I can just go to bed feeling good about that and getting people closer to Jesus. I think that's one of the highest value things. It feels like I finally have something meaningful to talk about. Because I think a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of people are very lost. I think a lot of people are, they have these massive channels and this and that, but the thing is, man, a lot of people's topics of discussion are kind of just meaningless. I'm just gonna be honest, like they're not, these are kind of like fluff, either entertainment things or even topics that are talking about gaming and this and that. These are all distraction things. And it's the channels that are talking about Jesus that I think are ultimate value. And now I feel way better doing this kind of thing, because I know that I'm doing something with a purpose, If I were to continue working, and if I were to continue hearing God's voice and me not acting on what he's talking about, then it's also just a form of disobedience, right? That was one way that I took it, was like, well, I mean, the Bible, there are countless examples in the Bible of how God punishes disobedience. And so there's even that dread in the back of my mind, thinking like, oh man, like if I don't do this, then what could happen, right? I don't know. So I didn't want to be disobedient. That was one thing. And I didn't want to be disobedient, and it was already something that I kind of wanted to do anyway. So that's why the step out of the corporate world wasn't a very jarring thing. It was kind of just in alignment to how I was already thinking anyway. So that's basically all I wanted to talk about. I'll put a video up on the screen somewhere here so you guys have something else to watch. But yeah, that's about it, man. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.